In 2024, gray divorce among people 50 and older, had doubled over the past 25 years in America. At 67, I became one of those statistics. Wesley Sullivan, carpenter, husband of 43 years, father of 1. My retirement planning, carefully constructed over 4 decades, was about to collapse. The family feud that would tear through my life hadn't started with arguments or disagreements. It started with a lie that lasted 23 years and destroyed my retirement dreams. I discovered my wife's affair at Home Depot. Not the kind of discovery you see in movies. No catching them in bed, no lipstick on collars. Mine was mundane, almost boring in its simplicity. I was picking up wood stain for a client's table when I saw Deborah in the parking lot, getting into a silver Mercedes. A man was driving. They kissed. Not a friendly peck. A real kiss. The wood stain can hit the concrete with a hollow thud I can still hear. I stood there, 67 years old, watching my wife of 43 years drive away with another man, and thought, this is what the end looks like. Not dramatic, just empty. I didn't confront her that night, or the next. Instead, I did what any good carpenter does. I observed, measured, checked my angles. Deborah came home at her usual time, made dinner, asked about my day. We watched Jeopardy together. She got 3 answers right in Final Jeopardy. I got none. I couldn't focus. "You okay, honey?" she asked. "Just tired," I said. The lie came so easily to her. It came easily to me too. For a week, I watched. Deborah left Tuesday and Thursday afternoons for her book club and volunteer work at the hospital. She'd been doing this for years. I'd never questioned it. Why would I? We were preparing for retirement. We had plans, travel to see Kevin's kids, maybe buy that RV we'd talked about. We'd done our retirement planning together, sitting at the kitchen table with financial statements spread between us. Or so I thought. On Thursday, I followed her. She drove to Henderson, 40 minutes from our Boulder City home. She pulled into the driveway of a 2-story house with a manicured lawn and a 3-car garage. The silver Mercedes was already there. I parked down the street and waited. 2 hours later, she emerged, fixed her hair in her car's mirror, and drove away. That night, I couldn't sleep. Deborah snored softly beside me, the same way she had for 43 years. I thought about gray divorce statistics my dentist had mentioned last month. More couples splitting up after 50 than ever before, Dr. Chen had said. Retirement changes people. Sometimes you realize you don't know the person you married. I'd laughed it off then. Now, lying in the dark, I understood. The next morning, I called an investigator. Her name was Remy Chen, recommended by a buddy whose own marriage had imploded 3 years ago. We met at a diner off the strip. "Tell me everything," Remy said, pulling out a notebook. I told her about Home Depot, about the Henderson house, about Deborah's schedule. Remy listened, made notes, asked precise questions. "How long have you suspected?" she asked. "A week, but looking back, maybe I should have known for years." "Don't do that to yourself," Remy said. "Most people don't see it until it's right in front of them, especially in long marriages. You trust. That's not weakness. It feels like weakness. It's not. Now, about finances, do you have joint accounts?" "Most things are joint. Deborah handles the day-to-day. I'm not great with numbers. She's the organized one." Remy's expression shifted. "I need you to pull all your financial records. Bank statements, credit cards, retirement accounts, everything for the past 5 years. Can you do that without alerting her?" "I think so. Why?" "Because, in my experience, long-term affairs don't just cost emotionally. They cost financially. And if she's been hiding this relationship, she might be hiding other things." The words sent ice through my veins. That weekend, while Deborah was at her book club, I went through our home office. Deborah had always been meticulous, files labeled, statements organized by year. But as I dug deeper, I found a second set of files, hidden behind the main filing cabinet, in an unlabeled box. Inside were bank statements for accounts I didn't recognize, credit cards in Deborah's name only, and mortgage documents for the Henderson house. My hand shook as I photographed everything with my phone. The Henderson house, purchased 15 years ago for $425,000. Paid off using a home equity line of credit on our Boulder City home. A HELOC I'd never signed for. I sat on the floor of the office, surrounded by evidence of a life I knew nothing about, and felt something break inside me. Gray divorce wasn't supposed to be like this. When couples split at our age, it was supposed to be about growing apart, about empty nest syndrome, about realizing you wanted different things in retirement. Not this. Not systematic deception. Not financial fraud. I called Remy. I need you to investigate everything, I said. Not just the affair. Everything. Remy's investigation took 3 weeks. 3 weeks where I went to work in my shop, came home to Deborah, ate dinner, watched television, and pretended everything was normal. 3 weeks of living with a stranger I'd shared 43 years with. When Remy called, her voice was tight. We need to meet. And you need to bring your lawyer. I met them at Remy's office, her and Patricia Morgan, the divorce attorney Remy had recommended. Patricia was in her 50s, gray hair pulled back, eyes that had seen too many marriages fall apart. Mr. Sullivan, Patricia said, before we begin, I need to tell you something about gray divorce cases in Nevada. When couples separate after decades together, especially approaching retirement age, the financial impact is catastrophic. You don't have 20 or 30 years to rebuild. You have maybe 10, 15 if you're lucky. What I'm about to show you, it's going to hurt. Remy opened her laptop, turned it toward me. Victor Thorne, she said, pulling up a photo. 69 years old, retired real estate developer. Met your wife 23 years ago at a Chamber of Commerce event. They've maintained a relationship ever since. 23 years. Kevin had been 19, just starting college. The Henderson house is in both their names, Remy continued. Purchased in 2010 for $425,000, now worth approximately $650,000. Deborah used a HELOC on your primary residence, your Boulder City home, to finance it. The HELOC is $500,000. Your signature was forged. I couldn't breathe. There's more, Patricia said gently. Your retirement accounts have been systematically drained over the past 15 years. She slid papers across the table, bank statements, transaction histories, withdrawal records. Your traditional IRA should have approximately $400,000 based on your contribution history and market performance. It has $113,000. Your joint Roth IRA should be around $200,000. It's at $44,000. Your 401k from your previous employer, the one you rolled over in 2015, should be $600,000. It's $188,000. The numbers blurred. My retirement planning, 4 decades of careful contributions, matching funds from employers, compound interest that should have grown steadily, all of it hollowed out. In total, Patricia continued, approximately $1.3 million has been withdrawn from your personal retirement accounts. Another $445,000 is missing from your joint brokerage account. Combined with the $500,000 HELOC debt, your net loss is approximately $245 million. How? My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Deborah had power of attorney over your accounts, Remy explained. You signed those documents years ago, right? Standard estate planning. I nodded. 15 years ago. Our lawyer had recommended it. If something happens to one of you, he'd said, the other can manage things without probate delays. It was supposed to protect us. She's been making withdrawals disguised as rebalancing, tax strategies, emergency expenses, Remy said. Small enough not to trigger immediate red flags, but consistent enough to drain everything. Patricia leaned forward. Wesley, Your retirement savings, everything you worked 40 years to build, is gone. What you have left is approximately $515,000 in remaining retirement funds, minus the $500,000 HELOC debt. Your net retirement assets are roughly $15,000. $15,000 at 67 years old. There's one more thing, Remy said quietly. Your son, Kevin. My heart stopped. 3 years ago, Deborah transferred $340,000 to Kevin's name, or so the paperwork says. But Kevin never saw that money. She forged his signature and moved it to a joint account with Victor Thorne. Kevin doesn't know? We don't think so. But legally, his name is on the documents. He could be charged as an accomplice. I stood up, walked to the window. Outside, Las Vegas sprawled under the desert sun, oblivious to the fact that my entire world was collapsing. What happens now? I asked. Patricia stood beside me. We file for divorce. We press criminal charges for fraud, forgery, elder financial abuse. We try to recover what we can from the Henderson property and any accounts we can trace. But Wesley, I need you to understand, this isn't just a gray divorce case. This is a criminal case, and it's going to destroy your family. My family is already destroyed, I said. I just didn't know it. That night, I went home. Deborah was making lasagna, my favorite. The kitchen smelled like garlic and tomato sauce. She smiled when I walked in. How was your day? Fine, I lied. We ate dinner. She talked about her book club discussing some mystery novel. I nodded in the right places. After dinner, I helped with dishes. Our hands touched under the soapy water. She squeezed my hand the way she had for 43 years. I love you, she said. I looked at this woman, this stranger, and saw the ruins of my retirement dreams reflected in her eyes. I know about Victor, I said quietly. Her hand froze in the water. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then she pulled her hand away, dried it slowly on a towel. How long have you known? Does it matter? She sat down at the kitchen table. I never meant to hurt you. You stole $2.2 million, Deborah. You destroyed our retirement planning. You forged our son's signature. What part of that wasn't meant to hurt me? I loved him, she said simply. I loved you both. I wanted both lives. You can't have both lives. That's not how life works. I'm 62 years old, Wesley. Do you know what that means? I've been someone's wife since I was 19. Someone's mother since I was 20. I managed the house, the finances, everything. While you were in your workshop making furniture for strangers. When I met Victor, he saw me, not as your wife or Kevin's mother, as Deborah. So you stole my retirement savings to build a life with him. I earned that money too. I managed everything while you played with wood. The words hung between us like poison. I'm filing for divorce, I said, and pressing charges. Patricia says this is elder financial abuse, fraud, forgery. You're going to prison, Deborah. Her face went white. You wouldn't. Watch me. The next morning, I drove to Kevin's apartment in North Las Vegas. My son, 42 years old, divorced twice, working as a casino pit boss, answered the door in his bathrobe. Dad, it's 7 a.m. What's wrong? We need to talk about your mother. Kevin's face changed. He knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. Inside his cramped apartment, I laid out the papers Remy had given me. Kevin sat on his worn couch, reading through transaction records with his name on them. I never signed these, he said quietly. I know. She told me she was helping with my gambling debts. 3 years ago, when I was in deep with the casinos. She said you'd agreed to loan me money from the retirement accounts, but you didn't want to see me. Said you were disappointed. The knife twisted deeper. Kevin, I never knew about any gambling debts. I know that now. His voice cracked. She gave me $50,000 in cash, said it was from the family emergency fund, told me not to tell you because you'd be angry. I thought I was keeping the peace, preventing a family feud. But the documents show $340,000 transferred. I swear to God, Dad, I only got 50. I don't know where the rest went. I believed him. Kevin had his problems, the gambling, the failed marriages, but he wasn't a thief. He was a victim, like me. Deborah had turned our family into a web of lies, with each of us caught in different threads. The lawyers say you could be charged as an accomplice, I said. Your name is on the forgery. Kevin's face went gray. What do I do? You tell the truth. You cooperate, and you testify against your mother. Dad, she's still my mom. No, I said, standing. A mother protects her child. She used you as a tool in her scheme. That's not love, Kevin. That's manipulation. This family feud, this war she started, it's not between you and me. It's between truth and lies. You need to choose which side you're on. Kevin looked down at his hands that looked like mine, carpenter's hands, even though he'd never built anything. I'll testify, he whispered. 3 days later, Deborah was arrested. I wasn't there, but Remy sent me the police report. Deborah had been at the Henderson house with Victor when officers arrived. They'd charged her with elder financial abuse, fraud, forgery, and identity theft. Bail was set at $100,000. Victor Thorne posted it within an hour. The divorce proceedings began in January 2025. Patricia filed for emergency protective orders, freezing all joint assets. The judge, a woman in her 60s who'd probably seen 100 gray divorce cases, granted them immediately. Mrs. Sullivan, Judge Morrison said at the preliminary hearing, you're accused of systematically defrauding your husband of his retirement savings over a 15-year period. Do you understand the severity of these charges? Deborah, dressed in a navy suit I'd bought her for our 40th anniversary, nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Your husband is 67 years old. His retirement planning has been destroyed. At his age, there's no time to rebuild financial security. Do you have anything to say? Deborah looked at me across the courtroom. I'm sorry. 2 words. 43 years. $2.2 million stolen. A family destroyed. All reduced to 2 words. I met with David Chen, the financial advisor who'd helped us create our retirement planning strategy 20 years ago. His office overlooked the Strip, glass and chrome and Success. My retirement was supposed to look like this. Secure, shining, carefully constructed. Wesley, David said, pulling up spreadsheets. Let me show you what we planned versus what actually happened. He split his screen. On the left, our original retirement projection from 2005. On the right, current reality. We projected $2.815 million by age 67, David explained. With a 4% safe withdrawal rate, that's roughly $112,000 annually, plus your Social Security of $2,400 monthly. You were looking at $140,000 per year in retirement income. He clicked to the next slide. Current assets after fraud, $515,000 in remaining retirement funds, minus $500,000 in HELOC debt. Net assets, $15,000. Your Social Security remains at $2,400 monthly. That's $28,800 annually, below federal poverty level for a single person. The numbers were clinical, precise. They didn't capture the feeling of 40 years evaporating. What does this mean practically? I asked. It means you'll need to sell your Boulder city home to pay off the HELOC. You'll downsize to a small apartment, maybe find part-time work if you're able. No travel, no helping Kevin or future grandchildren. Every medical expense not covered by Medicare will be a crisis. Wesley, this isn't the retirement we planned. This is financial survival. David paused. There's something else. Gray divorce cases like yours, where substantial assets are hidden or stolen, are increasing. But they're particularly devastating because at your age, you can't rebuild through decades of employment. A 30-year-old who loses savings can recover. A 67-year-old can't. So I work until I die. or until you can't work anymore. I sat in that glass office, looking out at Las Vegas, the city where fortunes were won and lost every second, and realized I'd lost mine not at a casino table, but at my own kitchen table, across 43 years of breakfasts. "Can we recover anything?" I asked. "The Henderson house might net $400,000 after legal fees. If we can prove Victor Thorne knowingly received stolen funds, we might recover more. But Wesley, even in the best case, you're looking at maybe $500,000 total. That's enough to avoid poverty, but not enough for the retirement you earned." The criminal trial began in March. Kevin testified first, walking to the witness stand like a man heading to his own execution. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Lisa Torres, led him through the timeline. "Mr. Sullivan, when did you first learn your mother was in a relationship with Victor Thorne?" "When my father told me, November 2024. "And before that, did you know about the Henderson house, the financial transfers?" "No. My mother told me the $50,000 she gave me came from a family emergency fund. She said Dad knew but was too disappointed in me to discuss it directly." "So she created a family feud that didn't exist?" Kevin's voice broke. "She made me think my father had given up on me. I thought we were enemies when we weren't. That's not a normal family argument. That's systematic destruction." I watched my son, a man I'd failed in so many ways when he was young, always in my workshop instead of at his soccer games, his school plays, and realized Deborah had weaponized my failures. She'd turned my absence into a tool for isolation. When it was my turn to testify, Lisa Torres walked me through 43 years of marriage. "Mr. Sullivan, when did you and Mrs. Sullivan begin your retirement planning?" "Early 1990s. I was in my 30s. We met with a financial advisor, started contributing to retirement accounts. We wanted security in our golden years." "And who managed these accounts?" "Deborah. She was better with numbers, organization. I trusted her completely." "When did you discover the fraud?" "November 2024. I'm 67 now. We were supposed to retire this year, travel, spend time with grandchildren. Instead, I'm here." Lisa Torres pulled up a chart on the courtroom screen. "This shows your projected retirement assets versus actual assets. Can you explain the difference?" I looked at the graph. 2 lines that should have moved together, instead diverging like a divorcing couple walking away from each other. We should have had 2.8 million. We have essentially nothing. 40 years of work, gone. That's what happens when the person managing your financial future for retirement is secretly destroying it. Deborah's lawyer, a slick man named Marcus Reed, cross-examined me with the precision of a surgeon. "Mr. Sullivan, you claim you knew nothing about these financial transactions, but you signed the power of attorney documents, correct?" "Yes, for estate planning purposes." "And you never once, in 15 years, reviewed your retirement account statements?" "Deborah handled that. I saw annual summaries she prepared. They looked fine." "So you chose not to be involved in your own retirement financial planning?" The question stung because it was partially true. I'd abdicated responsibility. Trusted blindly. "I trusted my wife," I said. "That's what marriage is supposed to be." "Or perhaps," Marcus said smoothly, "you were aware of the transactions and are now using this gray divorce, this late-life separation, as an opportunity to claim victim status and avoid your own financial mismanagement." "Objection." Lisa Torres was on her feet. "Sustained," Judge Morrison said. "Mr. Reed, don't make accusations you can't support." But the damage was done. The jury had heard it. Maybe I was complicit. During a recess, Kevin found me in the hallway. "Dad, I need to tell you something." We sat on a bench outside the courtroom. Kevin's hands shook. "When I was 25, Mom told me you wanted a divorce. She said you'd fallen in love with someone else, but you were staying for my sake. She said it was destroying you, that I should encourage you to leave so you could be happy." My chest tightened. "Kevin, I know that now. but for 17 years I thought you were trapped in a marriage you hated. I pulled away because I thought I was the reason you were miserable. Every time I called and you seemed distant, I thought it was because you resented being stuck. This family feud she created, it wasn't just about money. She turned us into strangers. I pulled my son close. At 42, he'd been manipulated like a child. She's a master at creating conflict where none exists, I said. That's how she maintained 2 lives for 23 years. She convinced each of us that we were the problem. The trial continued for 2 weeks. Victor Thorne was called as a witness. At 69, he looked like money. Expensive suit, silver hair perfectly styled, the confidence of a man who'd never faced consequences. "Mr. Thorne," Lisa Torres asked, "when did you learn that Deborah Sullivan was married?" "Immediately. She told me the first night we met." "And you pursued a relationship anyway?" "She said the marriage was over and everything, but paperwork, that they lived separate lives. Did you know about the Henderson house purchase? The use of marital retirement funds?" Victor hesitated. "I knew Deborah was handling it. She said Wesley had agreed to the investment." "So you never questioned why a married woman was buying a house with you using her husband's retirement savings?" I trusted Deborah. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. We'd all trusted Deborah. When Deborah finally took the stand, the courtroom went silent. She wore a simple gray dress, minimal makeup. She looked older than 62, worn down by the weight of 23 years of deception. "Mrs. Sullivan," Lisa Torres began, "you've heard testimony about the systematic theft of $2.2 million from your husband's retirement accounts. Do you deny these actions?" "No." "You forged your husband's signature?" "Yes." "You forged your son's signature?" "Yes." "You maintained a second household for 23 years, using money stolen from your family's retirement. Planning?" Deborah looked at me across the courtroom. "Yes." "Why?" For the first time, Deborah's composure cracked. "Because I was invisible. I married at 19, had Kevin at 20, and spent the next 40 years as Wesley's wife, Kevin's mother. I managed everything, the house, the finances, the planning, while Wesley built furniture and Kevin gambled away his paychecks. When I met Victor, he saw me, not as someone's wife or mother, as Deborah, as a person, and I wanted that life so badly I was willing to steal it." "So you destroyed your family's financial future for your personal happiness?" "I destroyed a lie," Deborah said, her voice rising. "Our marriage was already over. Wesley lived in his workshop. We barely spoke. I was managing a house with a ghost. Taking the money wasn't theft. It was payment for 40 years of being invisible." The courtroom erupted. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, Deborah stood between her, lawyers, hands clasped in front of her like she was praying. "On the count of elder financial abuse, how do you find?" "Guilty." "On the count of fraud?" "Guilty." "On the count of forgery?" "Guilty." Judge Morrison sentenced Deborah to 8 years in prison, with possibility of parole after 5. She also ordered restitution, the Henderson house to be sold, all proceeds going to me, and any recoverable assets from Victor Thorne's accounts. "Mrs. Sullivan," Judge Morrison said, "gray divorce cases are becoming increasingly common, but this goes far beyond a couple growing apart. You systematically destroyed your husband's financial future during the years when he should have been securing his retirement security. At 67, Mr. Sullivan cannot rebuild what you've stolen. This court hopes your sentence sends a message about the devastating consequences of financial elder abuse." Deborah showed no emotion as they led her away. Kevin sat beside me, crying quietly. I felt nothing, not satisfaction, not vindication, just exhaustion. The Henderson house sold for $640,000. After legal fees, outstanding liens, and Victor's claims, which were ultimately rejected, I netted $520,000. Combined with my remaining retirement funds, I had approximately $1.035 million. David Chen helped me restructure everything. It's not what we planned, he said, but it's survivable. You'll need to be conservative. No luxuries, careful budgeting. The 4% withdrawal rule gives you about $41,000 annually, plus Social Security. That's roughly $70,000 per year. Not poverty, but not the retirement we envisioned. I sold the Boulder City house. Too many memories, too many lies embedded in the walls. I moved to a small apartment near Kevin. 2 bedrooms, modest, manageable. I kept my tools, started taking small furniture commissions. Not because I needed the money desperately, but because I needed purpose. Kevin and I began rebuilding what Deborah had destroyed. Not the old relationship. That was built on her lies, her manipulations. Something new, honest, smaller, but real. "I'm sorry, Dad," Kevin said one night over pizza in my new apartment. "For believing her, for pulling away, for not seeing what was happening." "She was a professional deceiver," I said. "She fooled me for 43 years. You never had a chance. That family feud she created, making us think we hated each other when we didn't. It's the cruelest thing. Not the money. The years we lost. We can't get those years back, but we have now." Kevin nodded, wiping his eyes. "I want to be better. I'm going to therapy, dealing with the gambling, building something real. That's all any of us can do." 6 months after the trial, I attended a support group for gray divorce survivors. 12 people sitting in a community center basement, sharing stories of late life separations, betrayals, financial devastation. "I'm Wesley," I said when it was my turn. "Married 43 years, divorced at 67. My wife stole $2.2 million from our retirement accounts over 23 years to maintain a secret life with another man." A woman across the circle gasped. Others nodded knowingly. "What I've learned," I continued, "is that gray divorce isn't just about marriages ending after 50. It's about discovering that the life you thought you built doesn't exist. The retirement planning, the future you saved for, the family you believed in. Sometimes it's all an illusion. And at 67, when most people are enjoying their golden years, you're starting over from scratch." After the meeting, a man named Robert approached me. 71, divorced 2 years ago. "How do you cope?" he asked. "Honestly, some days I don't. I'm 68 now, working part-time making furniture, living in a 2-bedroom apartment. This wasn't the retirement I planned. But I'm learning that retirement isn't just about money. It's about peace. And I have more peace in this small apartment, with truth, than I ever had in that big house built on lies." Kevin got engaged in the spring. Her name was Sarah, a kindergarten teacher with kind eyes and no tolerance for gambling. "Dad," Kevin said, "I want you to walk Sarah down the aisle with her father, and I want you to be my best man." Is that weird? It's perfect. At the wedding, giving my toast, I looked at my son and his new wife and said, "Marriage is trust, not blind trust." I learned that lesson hard. But trust earned, trust verified, trust built on honesty. Kevin knows what happens when that trust is betrayed. He knows the cost of lies. He'll be a better husband because of it. Later, Kevin found me outside. "You think Mom would have come? If she wasn't in prison?" "I don't know. The Deborah I thought I knew would have, but I never really knew her. Do you hate her?" I thought about that. Did I hate the woman who'd stolen my retirement dreams, who'd turned our family into a battlefield of manipulation and deceit? "No," I said finally. "I pity her. She had everything real, a family, a home, security, and traded it for something fake. She destroyed her own life more than she destroyed mine. I'm still here. I'm rebuilding. She's in a cell, and she'll never get those years back either." A year after the divorce, I started teaching woodworking classes at the community center. Retirement, I discovered, wasn't about stopping work. It was about choosing meaningful work. 12 students, mostly retirees themselves, learning to build simple furniture. "Why do you teach?" one student asked. "Because building something real, something you can touch, use, pass down, matters, especially when you've lived through decades of something fake." I'm 69 now. My retirement planning didn't work out the way I designed it, but I'm alive, solvent, and free. Kevin calls twice a week. His daughter, my granddaughter Emma, visits every Sunday. We build small wooden toys together in my workshop corner. The family feud that Deborah created is over, replaced by something quieter, but genuine. Gray divorce taught me that ending a marriage isn't the tragedy. Living in a false one is. And retirement isn't about the money you accumulate. It's about the life you build with what's left. I look at Emma, 3 years old, carefully sanding a wooden block, and think, this is what I saved for. Not a big house or expensive vacations. This moment, this truth, this peace. It's enough.